how do you maybe help people to understand that it's not this person's trying to step out in a creative way? It's
Hmm.
that maybe this is something for them because maybe someone is unable to have children for whatever the reason,
Yeah.
or one person's opposed to it because maybe they don't want their body to change that way, but this
Hmm.
person wants it and they're trying to find a middle ground.
Yes. And that's exactly it. I find that the surrogate conversation for women is not um, as sexual as it is for men who have to use donor sperm for their wife's egg. That conversation is the one that takes a little bit more time because even though they know that this is a procedure, the idea of just another man's body parts or I don't in some in their way is something that we have to like really process and work through. And it's just that, it's you have to just wrap your mind around, okay, this is where we are, right? What does that mean for me as a man? As women also who have to use donor egg wrestle with that too. What we've been taught, oh, if you can't, produce a biological child, like a woman's put on this earth to do that, to procreate, depending on what those religious ideologies are, cultural, all of that. And that's the question I asked them. Well, do you believe that? Or is that what someone said and you believe? Like, do you really believe that? And we have to start there about self-worth, what that means, value, how I say you're valuable whether you produce a child or not. That's not the only way you bring value to someone's life or the world, right? And so really starting there and then building our way up. And I have to say I will say most of my clients that I've worked with who have started on this journey with trying, I don't like to say naturally, but people understand what that means. But trying, with their own egg and sperm, and then having to move to donor egg or sperm, like each step we have to really work through that. And what does that mean to you? What does that mean, right? What does it really mean? Dot dot dot, and then they have to finish the sentence, right? And are we going to let some of those things get in the way of what it is you really want? You want to build your family. You have so much love and care to give, and it will be received from this child no matter how this child got here, right? So yeah, we work on that. And then there's surrogacy groups. There's different groups of communities that one can join. Um, I have clients who are concerned about how would this child feel knowing that I use the donor sperm and I'm a choice parent and blah, 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 and all of those things. And so there are groups of grown-ups who talk about, I don't have any resentment towards my parents. I'm glad I'm here, So we explore that too. And mostly it's positive, you know. So we cover all the bases of the what ifs to help them get comfortable around their decision.
I'm glad that does happen because from the outside, like for me, as a man, that's always something that I always heard, right? Like to your point, where if you're going to allow, let's say, you know what, I'm not able to have children because it's a biological issue on my part, right? There's many men who when presented that situation, they're like, well, we're not going to have kids because they can't fathom the thought of because they're literally visualizing it like a faceless man doing all
Yes.
kind of weird and freaky things to their woman, right?
Yep.
And then the woman who's opposed to it, they're thinking that their man's gonna fall in love with this act, right? And you mentioned something about like maybe society and culture. Where do you think that originates from? exactly when in the minds of the people who actually believe this?
Ooh, okay. Uh, well, religious aspects, I have had clients whose partners practiced um, religions where it was not allowed. Um, any type of reproductive assisted technology was not allowed. And I've had a couple break up around it because they were told by their imam that they could not use donor eggs. And so, it's religion has been what I've seen, what has come across in my practice, a a barrier to some couples growing their family, and as a result have had they parted because of it. You know. Other than that, I have seen like, oh, what are we going to tell our parents because they're older, they don't understand. And like, you cross that bridge when you come to it. We can talk about ways to talk to family members, disclosure. I do believe in disclosure for the child. You don't want another family member, at the barbecue, whatever, because it happens. It has happened. And so we talk about just all of those scenarios. Um, and who do you trust? And, when you're going through this process, who will be allowed to know and at what stage and when and all of those things. But we usually can work through those. The biggest obstacle that I've come across has been, yeah, religious. And yeah. And even if it's not necessarily a doctrine that says that it's not allowed. It's just also what you are supposed to do as a woman. You're supposed to give your husband a you get what I'm saying? A baby. When, male factor infertility is just as prominent as female factor infertility. But it's automatically assumed that it's the woman's issue. And I think a lot of times to protect the husband, women don't talk about it.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear you say. Right, and I can see that because there's a little bit of a shame, right? Like,
Hmm.
hey Tony, you shooting blanks?
Right.
Right, versus,
Exactly.
oh, your wife is not able to have children. Oh, I feel so bad for her. Is she okay? You
Right.
see, right, there
Right.
isn't like a joke like for the woman per se, right? Like you can
Hmm.
come up with something, but there's literally your husband shooting blanks, right? There's
Yes.
literally a joke for him, right? And I wonder if maybe some of this can be avoided just if the couples involved focus on themselves, keep everyone to a distance, and have the
Yes.
conversation. What are your thoughts?
Yes. I agree. Um, that's exactly what we talk about. Finding a therapist who, specializes in reproductive health, and finding a community at some point when you're ready, because there are support groups for couples. Um, and when you do decide like how, this now he would have to go to a urologist, and there's steps like, maybe not involving, because the terminology and the emotional impact is a lot. And then to have to explain that to somebody else, it's just too much, right? You just got to get through it yourselves, and then figuring out at some point, who are our support systems and are we ready to share? And sometimes they're not. And maybe the support system is just the support group, not just, but the support group, and we're not ready to share until we conceive, or if not, how we're going to proceed. Maybe it's, I have clients who decided to foster, and hopefully at some point be able to adopt. So um, it's really a personal choice, but we talk about all of it and how to also respond to the inferences at the dinner table at Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter and all the at the baby showers and the, and how to really protect yourself and how to respond. So it's not sending you into a depression because people don't. I don't, first of all, let's just say, I just really don't understand why anybody thinks it's okay for them to ask about anybody else's reproductive system or health or when they're having a baby. I just don't, that's just so intrusive. And I really don't understand why people think that it's okay for them to ask that. Y'all been married 2 years. How come y'all ain't had no babies yet? Like, what?